guys, and welcome to Basic Scholars. I'm Shami, and today we're going to be talking about trigonometric functions. So let's get started. First, we have a total of 3 questions. And so our first question is, which of the above do not belong in the set? So to identify this, we must know that to be a part of this set, it has to be some version of plus or minus 2 pi. Let me write that correctly. So minus 2 pi. So, for example, we could take any of these values, but it's usually best to take the first value, so 2 pi over 3. So, if we were to say 2 pi over 3, it's kind of squeezed, but 2 pi over 3 plus or minus 2 pi. So let's say plus 2 pi. So that would be 6 pi over 3. So 8 pi over 3. So since it's one of the options, that means this one is not the one that doesn't belong. Moving on to the next one. We have negative 10 pi over 3. So if we were to do that here, then we would get, so let's do minus 2 pi, because minus 2 pi would be minus 6 pi, right? So if we were to do minus 6 pi, we would get minus 6 pi over 3, we would get negative 4 pi over 3. And then if we were to subtract that again, we would actually get negative 10 pi over 3. Okay, so basically, these two are canceled out. So since these two are here, that means this one is also canceled out. So it's between these two. So let's figure it out. Basically, we could just identify that this is going to be our answer, because we can, if we were to subtract negative 10 pi over 3 minus 2 pi, which would be minus 6 pi over 3, we would get negative 16 pi over 3, not 12 pi over 3. That means it's not a part of the above set. So our answer is negative 12 pi over 3. But just in case, we should probably look at this one, 20 pi over 3. We can identify that 2 pi plus 2 pi over 3 plus 2 pi gives us 8 pi over 3, and then that plus another 6 pi gives us 14 pi over 3, plus another 6 pi over 3 gives us this 20 pi over 3. Moving on to our next question. Evaluate the 6 trigonometric functions of theta. So, sorry, this is our theta. So, basically what our p-value tells us is that this is one coordinate. So basically our p-value tells us that our x value is negative 2, and our y value is going to be, why is that not working? Okay. Our y value is going to be 5. So now that we know these two, we just have to solve for this x, right? So to find that x, we just have to do, well, let's not name it x, because that would be bad for our following equation. So let's name it a, perhaps. I could probably just name it a. So to find a, we have to do square root of x squared plus y squared. In that case, we would have to square -2 and 5, so that would give us 4 plus 25 square root, which means that a is square root 29. So that literally means we could sub our a value now for an actual value. So square root 29. Moving on, we have to find all 6 trigonometric functions. So first let's start off with cosine of theta. Cosine of theta is adjacent over opposite. So the adjacent value to theta is -2 over the hypotenuse value, which is square root 29, which basically means that we have to even out the numerator and the denominator. And then we would have to multiply this square root 29 up there, square root 29, so 29, so negative first over 2 square root 29, so that is going to be our cosine value. Now moving on to sine. Our sine value is going to be the opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite value is 5 and the hypotenuse is 29. So that would give us 5 root 29 over 29. That is our sine value. And then finally, our tangent value is equivalent to opposite over adjacent. So our opposite value is 5 and our adjacent value is -2, so -5 over 2. That's going to be our tangent value. Now it's basically easy to flip these, because then if we want to find the cosecant of theta, well, that's not that simple. Okay, if we want to find the secant of theta, we would basically just reverse, or well, not reverse, but reciprocate the cosine value, because secant of theta is the reciprocal of cosine of theta. So that would result in 29 over 2 square root 29. So what do we have to do next? We would have to now balance the denominator, and then we would have to multiply them out. So we would get 29 square root 29, and then on the bottom we would get 2 times 2 times 29, which is going to be 116. but that can still be simplified to square root 29 over 4. So that is your secant value. Your cosecant value is the reciprocal of your sine value. So that means it's going to be the opposite. So 29 over 5 root 29. Oh, that kind of just randomly showed up. Square root 29. That is going to simplify to 29 square root 29 over 25 times 29, which is 725. So that should simplify to about square root 20. That would basically give us square root 29 over 25. So now moving on, I'm just going to try to get rid of these because they are irritating me. Finally, that's good. Alright, moving on to our last question of the video. Determine the sine value, positive or negative. So positive or negative of the following. Then determine the real numbers of A and C. So A and C, we have to determine what they are exactly. So, first we start off with finding the sine value. So, tangent of 300, if we were to look at the unit circle, so it's a decent unit circle, our 300 degrees would be right here. So that means it's in quadrant 4. So if it is in quadrant 4, we're looking for the tangent, what would be the value? So at that point, for 300 degrees, our value would be negative because our x value is a positive and our y value is a negative. So since it's opposite over adjacent, for tan, it's going to be negative. I will come back to determine the real numbers of A and C. Let's move on to B, sine of 231 degrees. So that is roughly about here. That's where it is roughly located. Sine 231 degrees. So that is opposite over hypotenuse. So since it is opposite over hypotenuse, I have decided, well, math by itself has decided that it is going to be a negative value because our hypotenuse is a positive value and therefore our sine is going to be a negative value since our y value is negative. Now, moving on to our C, the cosine of 7 pi over 6. So that is going to be around, let's see, around, in this unit circle, it is going to be around like here, because I want to be as detailed as possible. It's going to be around there. So if we were to determine the cosine of 7 pi over 6, that is going to be negative. is going to be a negative value. Then we have secant of 7 pi over 8, which is just the opposite of cosine. So basically, if we find cosine, we could just assume that it's the same as secant. So the cosine of 7 pi over 8 is going to be a negative value. Because it is just a negative value. There's no other reason. Because it's a negative value, it's a negative value. No, I'm just joking. It's not because of that. It's because if you were to locate this, it would be somewhere around, I want to say right around there. So if that were our problem, then our cosine, which is going to be our adjacent over hypotenuse, our adjacent value is actually negative because the x value is negative. So therefore, a negative x value over a positive a hypotenuse would give you a negative value. So now moving on to the second part of A and C, to determine the real numbers of A and C. So let me change the color so that it's detail. So I'll say this is like part B. Okay, and so the tangent of 300 degrees. So we have to find that. So if it's there, and then we should have memorized this. And our tangent is opposite over adjacent. So our opposite value is negative 3 square root 3 over 2. Then our adjacent value is 1 over 2. So now we have to simplify. So the 2 from here goes there, the 2 from there goes here. So we end up with negative 2 square root 3 over 2, which basically means negative square root 3 is going to be our answer. Sorry about the wonkiness here, guys. I just transferred to my mouse now. So, moving on. For C, we have to find the cosine of 7 pi over 6. So, according to our unit circle that we should have memorized, 7 pi over 6 is basically 210 degrees. But if you didn't know that, you need to know that. But now moving on, our cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So our adjacent value, so our x value is negative square root 3 over 2 over 1, because our hypotenuse is always 1 in the unit circle. So that simplifies to negative root 3 over 2. Wait, let me make that a little bit clearer. This is going to be our answer. And that's it. That's all you need to know for trigonometric functions extended. I'll see you next time, where we will be learning about sinusoidal graphs. Until then, subscribe, and I'll see you later in the next video.